and stuff like that. Okay, so I was supposed to talk about trying to grow some grass-fed beef from a nutritional side. So I want to start with the basics of forage nutrition. First of all, in the dairy industry and a lot of the conventional beef industry, this guy here is used pretty hard as a forage. The dense energy deals, corn silage, forage sorghum harvested at soft dough, small grains harvested small dough at soft dough stage can also work. That's not what we're using, okay? This is where a lot of energy comes from in the, we'll say, the non-grass fed or finished farms, okay? Although you could argue that corn's a grass, forage sorghum's a grass, but you know, the concept is no grain. Protein crops, well, legumes, alfalfa and clover. I've read a few places. There's a place in, I believe it's Maryland, that finishes on alfalfa, beef. And in Argentina, they use a lot of alfalfa. I don't quite get why they would use alfalfa. I know it's drought tolerant, but from a nutritional standpoint, it doesn't make sense to me. Because these are high protein crops. 20 to high 20s is typical. And that's too much protein. So if we want to lose weight, I got a little belly here. If I want to lose weight, what do I want to eat? Not carbohydrates, protein. Okay, that causes weight loss. It's called the Atkins diet. Where we're at, and we'll use a combination of these, but fiber energy is really what we're trying to get for grass-finished beef. So these crops have good fiber energy, and fiber energy is that cellulose and hemicellulose that the animal, the ruminants, have the ability to break down. They do not break down lignin. So lignin is the least digestible, really. What breaks down lignin? Termites. Okay. Termites and molds and funguses. Cellulose, the animal can digest. Hemicellulose is very digestible. And then the other thing that you get, and this is where the alfalfa and clovers come in from, within the cell walls is a lot of sugars. Okay, sugars and other goodies. So if the grasses are vegetative, whether it be perennial grasses or annuals, we get a lot of energy out of that. And if we're fertilizing right, and we're harvesting them at a nice 20-inch, 20-inch stage. Okay, question for you guys. What if you were a nutritionist and you were balancing a steer's diet for finishing, how much protein would she have in her diet? Joy Beam, I'm going to ask you.
I'm going to go with 12%.
12 is a pretty good number. We have 10 here. It's in that range, okay? Well, this, by the way, is about 8. This is about 20 to 30. And this is about 14 to 16, somewhere in that ballpark. So these make a pretty good total diet, but it has to be vegetative young. Okay, so why do we pasture and graze? Hopefully I'm speaking to the choir here. It's what they're designed to do, right? Cows are not pigs. Steers are not pigs. They're ruminants. They have this great big 50-gallon ruminant vat in their system that can break down fiber, which we as people cannot break down. It's the lowest forage cost system. So when I was in Penn State, I did a lot of math on this, and typically it's at least half the cost. Savings can be, back then, and I didn't recalculate it, back then it cost you 2 to 3 cents a pound of dry matter to make it in a pasture system. In a stored feed system, it costs 6 to 9 cents. So huge amount of savings, okay? All right, also it's a housing system for your animals that yields when we manage, okay? And honestly, it's enjoyable as a hobby to a profession. How many people would consider themselves in the hobby level? I'm going to raise my hand for that. How many guys, it's your main income source? Anybody, it's your main income source? A few? Okay, so everybody else is in between. All right, so that's quite the range. And I find, personally, I'm working in the office, and I come home, it's enjoyable. It's away from people and problems. But it can be entertainment. Just enjoy this video here. I mean, that's, it's just fun. You get moments like that that are pretty precious. Okay, so why grass-fed? Well, consumer demand, right? I'm going to ask you guys, why do consumers want grass-fed?
Health benefits.
Health benefits? Yep, that's one of them.
Animal welfare.
Animal welfare, another one?
They're told to eat it.
They're told to eat it by maybe the doctor?
Somebody.
Somebody? Okay. 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 Taste? I think taste is a preference, and it does depend. So good public perception, good animal welfare, and these things, I could argue that you can have pretty poor animal welfare on a pasture system as well. Okay? It's just public perception. So it's up to us to do a good job. We can't be doing a bad job. Good for human health. I'll talk about that a little more later. Good for the environment? Yes or no? There's some argument about that. In general, I would say yes if we're doing our jobs as stewards. If we're doing a crappy job, I got a neighbor that does a terrible job. that just, I was like, if he wasn't my neighbor, I might be making a phone call. So, local. I think local is important. But the reality is in the grass beef world, there's a lot of imports starting to come in that could trash our market. Anybody get Graze magazine? Graze magazine is a great magazine. Graze, just Graze. Joel McNair's the guy that puts it on. It has sections where farmers write. It's a little more dairy oriented, but it's not all. It has beef and sheep in it too. Great publication. And they talk about big picture items. And one of the big picture items is if we don't get the supply up, guess what? Somebody else will. And then it's not going to be local.
I have a quick question.
Yeah.
I'm surprised no one's ever done a study on that.
On
What
what?
percentage of its health, you know what I mean, the perception of it.
Oh, there's all kinds of studies out there, and I'll
I would
just.
think it'd be health.
Well, I'll get into a little bit. So why grass finished? Okay. Okay, beef's good for you. I don't care if it's grass finished, fed, or grain finished. It's good for you. Okay. Is it a superfood? There's some people that would say meat is a superfood. There's a growing movement towards kind of, okay, let's get rid of these carbs. And how am I going on time?
We have like 20 minutes.
Okay. So now the superfood status is when we start getting more omega-3s in it. And here's what's going on. So if an animal eats, as a general rule, a vegetative plant, green tissue, it's going to throw more omega-3s into the fat. If she's eating grain, she's going to throw, or he's going to throw omega-6s as a general rule, okay? Fish are known to be high in omega-3. Guess what? If you feed fish grain like they do, it's not true anymore because they're getting fed grain. So, and in the ocean, it's algae and plants. So this is probably hard for you guys to see, so I probably should have highlighted it, but what this is percent omega-3 in the total fat. So there's only 3% of the fat is omega-3s in a steer when she's on grass. You come out here, and Joy said finishing is somewhere in that 90-day range or so. A little more? Okay. 100, if she's on a traditional heavy grain diet, maybe just a little bit of hay to keep her alive, we're down below the 1% level. Okay, so who cares? Well, here's where the problem is. The U.S. diet has about a 16-to-1 omega-6 to 3 ratio. And people range. That's not healthy. We want it between 4-to-1 to 1-to-1, and I can be I'm a personal testimony on this. So when I was about 42, I started to get degenerative arthritis. Well, what's that? That's inflammation of the joints. Omega-3s suppress that. Omega-6s enhance that. And I knew about this, so I started taking as much omega-3s sources into my body as possible. I did the whole gamut. I did the milk, grass-fed milk. I did the beef. I did the eggs. I did the fish oil supplements, and I barely have symptoms these days. Occasionally, I'll feel it. But it was all my milking parts. When I told you I was growing a farm, this hand, this knee, all the stuff. When you milk cows, you're doing this a lot for just prepping the cows, not actually milking them. So this is very real, and this is a big part of our health issue. There's lots of issues. So now, if you want to help with your marketing, here's 3 websites that are very good. This lady's fairly new on the scene. It's Dr. Georgia Eade, and she's a psychiatrist that is focusing on nutrition. So she kind of went, I'm going to say, rogue from the institutions, but she's discovered that there's a link between mental health and nutrition. So she's working on this stuff. So her website's diagnosisdiet.com. Got all kinds of good information on meat, in addition to vegetables, fruits, grains, milk, and she's pretty critical on virtually every food. Okay, so meat might be attacked just a little bit, but not much. And basically the big summary that she says is, eat animals that were fed the way they were designed to be fed, okay? And that includes grass-finished meat. Weston Price Foundation, that's a good site. Again, this is Resource for Marketing, and eatwild.com. That was the first one that I really became aware of. I don't know if it's quite as fresh as it used to be, but I did look at it. It's still an active site, but you can get some more backgrounds of why this or that. And I want to just show you, this is one of my eggs, okay? This is John Deere yellow, and then John Deere green. That's not yellow, but that's and this was an egg with the chickens running around, eating the grass, clover, and worms and whatnot. So, and that color is an indication of vitamin E. Okay.
Also, your interior level of white goes to show you the quality of the egg.
Yeah, you got the the rise.
Bakeries go crazy for that.
Anyway, I have a customer in the back that loves my eggs. He doesn't pay a cent for them. When we're long, I just give him. No, he's not my son. Employee. Okay. All right. There's some negatives of grass finished. Okay. All right. I'm not even going to. What's the negatives? You guys are trying to do it. What's the challenges?
It takes forever to finish them.
Time to finish. Okay. Anybody else? Land. Yep. Okay. I didn't list that one, but that's definitely true. Okay.
The structure, you know, bring them in, might not be able to treat it.
Handling. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I don't think I listed that one either. It's hard to accomplish. It's hard to finish on grass. Okay, you gotta have good stuff. Okay, more time to finish. More management. Okay, it takes up here to do this. And here's my biggest complaint. And I like John's grass-fed beef, but I might not like yours, because John did it this way and you did it that way, and you were a rookie. He's experienced. And all of a sudden, I'm the customer, and I said, oh, I don't like that stuff. It's no good. And even on your own farm, you can get some variability. So I think that's, whereas the grain-finished folks, they got the formula. It's consistent, boom, boom, boom. Now, you do have some variation within that, too. But that's our biggest challenge, is variation in final product. But we also have the handling issues. You got cows all over the place, steers all over the place,
The other
this
thing
and
about
that.
variation, Tim, is also the genetics.
Genetics of the animal.
That's huge.
Yeah.
Whether
Yep.
you raise your own,
Right.
or you're bringing from somebody else, you don't know who you're getting
Right,
from.
right. Well, and you have that same problem with the grain
Sure,
finish
yeah.
too. But I think we have more variation. I mean, I've had shoe leather, grass-fed beef, and I've had really tasty, I'm going to say grass-finished beef. Okay, and the difference is finished means it's finished. She has fat on her, and fat is good for us. Okay, and that's starting to get out to the public, that healthy fats are good for us. Now, bad fat's not good for you. So that the crushed grains and stuff, those oils, they're not good for you. And those sites have a lot of information on that. And now, I used to call grazing a game of chess, of trying to figure out what you're doing. I've changed my thing to stewardship chess, because for you to make grazing work, it's a game. And the goal is to convert sunlight into forage. Forage into the greatest food for our customer. That's our goal, right? The game board's your landscape, soils, topography, water, trees. Everybody has different game board. So my farm's different than your farm. It's different from your farm. And you manage the soil, the plants, the livestock over the weather periods. Okay, so this year it was super wet. You guys weren't dry over here, were you?
2 weeks in July.
61 inches of rain is what we had in, I think, the driest part of Lancaster County. So, 65, anybody 70? Anyway, it's a terrible wet year. And actually, a wet year is the hardest year. I'd rather do dry year than a wet year, because your forages have better quality than a wet year. Wet year, you don't have any sunlight to turn it into energy, so it's just rotten. Anyway, so it's over weather and time. Where's your cows going tomorrow? Where are they going in a week? Or are they going next month, next season, winter, etc., etc.? Okay. Tools. Your mind, defense, fertility, genetics, harvesters, storage, tools, and equipment. And I got the hurry up message. So the basics: select appropriate livestock, and then we have to have great forage, not so-so forage. We need to have great forage for rapid gain. And what makes that happen? Digestible genetics. And that's stuff that you're not going to do it on Kentucky 31, okay, for example, or the old junky orchard grasses that were bred in the 1950s. You need the good stuff. Europe has the good stuff, and Americans are just catching up on it, and we have some European technology being developed in the United States now, so it's even more exciting. Important, quality. What did we say? He needs 10 to 12%, somewhere in that ballpark. Short grass is also too high in protein, too low in fiber. We want it taller. And it depends on the species what taller meat is. Perennials, I like to think of 15 inches as being a nice goal. And then we need to have the appropriate stocking rate for your style of grazing. You need that water, salt, mineral protection from the weather extremes. Just a few pictures. I live in the middle of Amish Country. So here's one in early spring. Here he is in the end of May. It's called the Pone. So we're looking for this nice pone developed. And by the way, this is a half Jersey, this is half Red Devon, half belted Dutch belt, and half Holstein. So it's a very interesting animal. And this is how I like my steak. So,
A little rare for me.
well, it's not quite, it doesn't, you can't see the fat when it's cooked. So again, we don't want real short grass, we want tall grass. Forage availability, we want species that work for your soils. And we can help you in that. I love mixtures. I'm a mixture guy. We need the right genetics. We need balanced soil fertility. Here's another key. Don't put too much nitrogen down. That's a big mistake. What's nitrogen make? Protein. Do you want protein? No. You put enough to give you good solid green growth. If your plants are yellow, you need nitrogen. If they're dark blue almost, way too much. So you just want to put enough on, and I like to use the legumes as the base for feeding the nitrogen. That way, you're not going to get too much. And, again, taller. Classic cool season curve for perennials. Now, we're trying to have rapid growth all year long, right? John, you got customers that need beef all year long, right? I personally like to finish in the spring, like in May. I don't have the same business that John does. Well, it gets a little complex. This is where your base should be, in my opinion, in this part of the world. We can do an awful lot of stockpiling. I just started feeding hay on Sunday evening on my place. I got a lot of land for the cow numbers. Winter annuals go in the shoulders. Summer annuals take care of our drought. We can even use corn. We actually have a male sterile corn that can be used as well. That will give you yield around here. Spring annuals, we got this high quality baleage and hay at the times when the pasture falls short, winter and drought time. Use your stored feed to manage your pastures. This is another shot of it from a visual perspective. The green is the perennials, the yellow is the summer annuals, and the blue is I'm going to say the blue is a combination of stockpile winter annuals and stored feed. Growth curve. Whether this be a perennial or an annual, it doesn't really matter. There's not much yield, right? Here we're getting a lot of yield. Here, as soon as you get into the head stage, there's not much more yield coming. Well, is there meat in this? Yeah, he's probably going to lose. He's going to lose weight on that. How about this?
No protein.
There's nothing in that. There's fiber. Lots of fiber. Okay. You're not going to have what you want. You want to be in this stage. Okay. Here's the quality curve. It's dropping like a rock once you get into heading. Now, I'm going to argue with this slide. I stole this from somebody. It's saying the grays here, saying silage here or baleage here, and saying hay here. I agree with these two. This is, in my opinion, for doing a grass finished fed diet, slide it over more this way. So I don't know what you guys are grazing at, but I don't like to be grazing less than 12 inches, turning my cows into it. And I like to have it high. Now, there's some challenges with that. 2 minutes? Gee. Poor management. We don't want this. We don't want that. We don't want that. We don't want that. Okay. Is that with my extended time or my original time?
Your extended time.
Okay. So, this cool shot way back quite a few years ago. Plant it bigger. Look at those roots. When you graze it off, what happens? The roots die off. Then things got to regrow. So obviously you need to harvest. So we don't want to harvest too hard. When you harvest too hard, where's your solar collectors? You don't have any. The sun's hitting the soil. The roots, nothing, no ability to grow. So you want to bring it back into this range so it kicks somewhere in this range so it kicks back into gear. Yes?
What kind of height are you looking for on like residue after post-grading?
My preference is about 4 inches. But if you really want to cream the top, you can go. And a cool way to get that established is to actually clip at the height you want it to be before you turn the cows out, the steers out, whatever. That way they'll get poked in the nose and you set the height for the year. Okay, same example. If we take more than half of it off, we don't have much root. Okay, so if we graze hard, we're killing our roots, which kills our top growth. So take half, leave half is kind of a general rule. Another concept, long-term perennials. We always want to sacrifice a lot. Depending on how sophisticated you want to be, these summer annuals, winter annuals, and short-term perennials can come into it. Most of us start with this. This is the base, and then this is the as we get better. Some crops, spring annual. Well, this is a winter annual in the spring. That's the kind of stuff we want to be on. This happens to be ryegrasses. Here's some small grains. Small grains at a bigger stage. Once it's this is starting to get out of control. Okay, she's going to run away from you really quick. The perennials. Anybody see something kind of funny in this picture?
Sheep.
Yeah. I, on purpose, am leaving blocks of bigger stuff for them to get some fiber. Okay. So I'm
Clipped parts of that pasture.
yeah, this was clipped, that was not. And they grazed that pretty good. By the time the year was over, there was hardly anything left. But that gives them some fiber. Summer annuals, this is Sudan grass. And this is our Raised Crazy Summer mix with free foxtail in it. By the way, the only grazing animal that I've seen that eats yellow foxtail is geese. They love it. Fall crops. This is our Raised Crazy fall mix, and you can do serious gain on that stuff. That's Soil Builder Plus. Winter hay. Winter grazing. This I just took the other day, so they were still grazing that stockpile forage, and I opened up.
Any weight on that?
Yeah, it's not bad.
You think they're still putting weight on, or they're just?
They're not losing.
Okay.
I don't know if they're gaining. I just opened this bag up. This is Amish style balage. Little square bales. Because I only have a few head. I have 9 right now. From anywhere from heifers, young heifers to questionable whether I could have took them this fall. Feeding hay out in the pasture. To make stored feed, you got to be ready. This is a cool harvester. It's a double reciprocating sickle bar mower, low cost, and it flies and it does a beautiful job. And you need something to get to your animals, whether it be that or that. Okay. I think I'm going to stop.
Perfect.
Perfect?
Perfect.
So we could have went more, but this is the heart of it. So what I want you guys to think about is, as we go through, Joy's going to do her talk from a different angle, and then we want to share as a group. So if there was something that, I don't like that idea or whatever, let's talk about it. Because that's how we learn. I mean, there's a lot of experience in this room. People that have been doing it a lot longer than I have. I've been learning about it for a long time, but until you do it, theory and doing, you got to jump in the water and swim. So.